The great beast has you by the guts. Struggle, he'll rip 'em out. Surrender, you get to keep 'em.
The Imperium has faced many trials throughout its history of wars and crusading, with some engagements and campaigns threatening to destroy humanity should his Imperium falter in its duty to protect it. From the treachery of the War Master and his traitorous civil war, and in its wake, a resurgence of an old enemy. The Greenskin tides would rally to their new parody of a ruler and hope to destroy the Emperor and his noble bastions of humanity. And so, in this transmission, we shall elucidate the story of the Imperium's greatest campaign against the Greenskins, led by their mysterious and deadly ruler, a creature known only as the Beast. To understand the motivations of the Ork Xenos, one must elucidate the history of humanity's initial encounters and triumphs against them. A hostile species, the Orks live purely for slaughter, bloodshed, and the joy of battle. Killing anything they should encounter, the Orks would first engage the forces of the Imperium during the Emperor of Mankind's holy Great Crusade. As the warriors of his Imperium brought worlds into compliance with their continued expanse into the galaxy, their efforts would be continuously harried by the Greenskin tide. With many planets brought into compliance with the Imperium, and the Primarchs of the Emperor battle-hardened and united through decades of war, the Emperor would resolve to crush the Orks before their seemingly endless numbers could coalesce into a force capable of threatening humanity's dominance. Commanding his Primarchs to combine their legions to face the Greenskins, the Emperor and his sons would drive the Orks from their hovels and dwellings from every planet and every sector of the galaxy. No match for the Legiones Astartes and the mightiest military force within the galaxy, the Xenos would be pushed back further from the Emperor of Mankind's strongholds and crusade fleets. Cornered on the Greenskin homeworld of Ullanor, the Emperor and his most favoured son, Horus Lupercal, would spearhead the final assault to break the Greenskins during 000.M30. Cutting a swathe through the Orks despite the Imperium's army being outnumbered fivefold, the Emperor of Mankind and Horus would fight their way to the Tower of Ullanor. Horus would face their overlord, Urlak-Urg, and despite the Xenos' immense size, cripple his body and throw the overlord from atop the tower. As the Ork charlatan's body crashed onto the ground and split open amongst its rabble, the Orks would begin infighting to assume the now vacant role of overlord. The battle would become a massacre as the disorganized rabble would be decimated by the Imperium, as the single mightiest victory the Imperium had claimed of its time. The Ullanor triumph would herald a new dawn for humanity. With the Emperor crowning Horus as the new War Master of the Imperium, the shame of the Orks' failure would be rooted deep within their primitive culture. Their pride as warriors proven false, the Greenskins would scheme and plot as humanity's star would eventually wax and wane. For soon, their opportunity to strike would be realized upon the fractured remnants of the Imperium. Over 2 millennia later, reports of the Ork strength growing within the dark corners of the galaxy would begin to be reported by the agents of the Imperium. The Imperium's so-called Time of Rebirth had scoured the galaxy of the broken traitor legions, born new generations of Astartes chapters, and slowly rebuilt pieces of its former glory. Complacent with their inherited glories, the custodians of the rule of the Imperium, the High Lords of Terra, would be slow to challenge the rising Greenskin hordes. Led by a mysterious Ork war boss, proclaiming itself as the Lord who will bring great slaughter, this towering creature would be labelled simply as the Beast. By the time of 544.M32, the Waagh of the Beast would rampage across the galaxy until its size grew to be the largest ever seen in the Imperium's recorded history. Larger in scale than even the Ork tide fought by the Emperor during the Great Crusade, the Imperium would face its single greatest threat since the Horus heresy, without their vaunted Primarchs or even the Emperor to take to the field of battle. Due to its stalling to engage the Greenskins, The Imperial Fist Shield Company dispatched to the world of Adamantua would be crushed by the Orks during their scheduled extermination of the Chrome species of Xenos. Dispatching the entirety of the Imperial Fist chapter to face the migrating Chrome Xenos and rescue their shield company, the High Lords of Terra would once again underestimate the Orks. Ambushed by the sudden materializing of an attack moon within the orbit of Adamantua, the rescue fleet would be annihilated. With only 4 members of the chapter surviving the onslaught, 3 would subsequently die from their wounds incurred fighting the Orks. The sole survivor of the rescue fleet, 2nd Captain Kurland of the Daylight Wall Company, would become the de facto chapter master of the Imperial Fists. Alone, Kurland would transmit an astropathic message to the High Lords of Terra that the single greatest Ork Xenos threat to the Imperium would soon venture to Holy Terra. For humanity was once again in the grasp of a war of galactic scale. A war which could very well endanger humanity's survival. Ravaging entire sectors of the Segmentum Solar, the attack moon of the beast would decimate human strongholds across the sector. Billions perished as gravitational and psychic storms raged in the wake of the attack moon's path of destruction, driving Imperial citizens into madness and desperation. Their insane corruptions leading these humans to worship the beast in cults of the most depraved heresy. Yet such heretics would not be spared by the Greenskins, as their bodies were added to the score of the Imperium's fatalities. As infighting grew within the High Lords of Terra, High Marshal Bohemond of the Black Templars, alongside the last son of Dawn, Kurland, would exact their Gene Father's contingency plan, known as the Last Wall Protocol. Convening with the Imperial Fist successor chapters within the file system, with representatives of the Crimson Fists, Fists Exemplar, and Excoriator chapters, the Sons of Rogel Dawn would combine their strength to aid in the protection of Holy Terra. Enacting the Last Wall Protocol, their strength would be bolstered, yet several successor chapters, such as the Executioners and Soul Drinkers, would be unreachable. Meanwhile, Lord High Admiral Lansung of the Imperial Fleet would launch a desperate counterattack against the beast's Waagh. Facing the attack moon and its fleets at the Port of Sanctus Imperial shipyards, the Imperial Fleet would be outmatched after several weeks of intense fighting. Teleporting aboard the Imperial vessels, the Orks would rapidly overrun the Imperial Navy's ships from within. Yet due to the undisciplined nature of the Xenos, the Greenskin fleet would divide itself in order to pursue individual Imperial ships that attempted to withdraw from the battle. In a final, desperate move, the Imperial fleet would bear its surviving might to break through the Ork lines to destroy the attack moon. Charging into a suicidal barrage, the Imperial fleet would sacrifice itself to destroy the attack moon's void shields and damage its gravitic generators. Successful in their charge, the Imperial vessels would destroy the attack moon from within, resulting in a massive explosion, which would in turn atomize the remaining Imperial forces caught within its blast. Returning to Holy Terra to a victor's parade, Lord High Admiral Lansung would be vaunted for his immense triumph. Yet such celebrations would be short-lived, with the materializing of another attack moon visible within orbit of Holy Terra. The beast's armies further enclosed the sectors surrounding Holy Terra, suffocating reinforcements and supplies to the throne world. The ultramarine system of Ultramar would be invaded, preventing the 13th Legion successor chapters from aiding Holy Terra as they defended their sector. The Iron Hands chapter would send 3 companies to aid in the defense of Holy Terra, whilst the Salamanders, Space Wolves, and Raven Guard would see to the defense of their own systems and vassal worlds, with only the Blood Angels chapter able to alleviate the strain on Holy Terra's defenses by destroying an attack moon within their territories of the Baal system. Yet even the traitors to the throne would not go unmolested, as the beast's armies would battle the Iron Warriors on the world of Klostra and prevent aid to the traitors from leaving the Maelstrom Warp Rift. Riots would erupt within Holy Terra, straining the law of the Adeptus Arbites. Fabricator General Kubik of Mars would refuse to send aid to Holy Terra due to his own requirements to protect the forge worlds of the Mechanicus. As the rule of the High Lords of Terra diminished, the Ecclesiarchy would stand in their place to launch the Proletarian Crusade. Arming civilians, imperial cults of the Fraternus Militia, pious Astra Militarum soldiers, and even members of the Adeptus Arbites to face the Greenskins and mete out the Emperor's divine justice. Amassing voidcrafts of many types and configurations, the assembled might of the Ecclesiarchy's militia stormed the attack moon. Carving through the Orks and deploying heavy armor within the attack moon, the Proletarian Crusade would drive back the Orks. But alas, they would be led into a trap devised by the beast and be crushed by the manipulation of the attack moon's surface, which enclosed around them. With the Proletarian Crusade utterly destroyed, all hope of protecting Holy Terra seemed lost. 3 Ork Ambassadors would demand the surrender of the Imperium, peculiarly in Imperial Gothic. Speechless, the High Lords of Terra would be unable to relay to the Ambassador a verdict, and with that, the Ambassadors would leave in disgust. Yet at its darkest hour, the Imperium would receive aid from an unlikely ally. Within orbit, an Eldari vessel would be observed, crewed by 7 Harlequin strike forces led by the Shadowseer, Lariel Ray. The Eldari would deliver a message at the behest of the Eldar Farseer, Eldrad Ulfrain, butchering any who stood in their path, be they human or orc in nature. The Harlequins would breach the inner palace. Facing hundreds of the custodians of the Emperor, the Harlequins would be struck down until only Shadowseer Lariel remained. Captured and grievously wounded, Lariel's life would be spared by the Grand Master of the Assassins, Vangorich, and the founding member of the Inquisition, once known as Kirill Sinderman, Inquisitor Veritas. Once interrogated, the Shadowseer would present the tooth of a drake of the Salamander's homeworld of Nocturne, previously given to Farseer Eldrad by the 18th Legion's Primarch, Vulkan. Proving her intentions to be somewhat peaceful, she would inform them that the craftworld Ufwe had calmed the warp within Terra's proximity to aid in their conflict against the Orks. Soon after, the chapters of the Last Wall Protocol would arrive in system to Holy Terra, their fleet comprised of a mix of 20 battle barges and strike cruisers. The Astartes would bring 2,800 combined Astartes to Terra's aid. Convincing the Fabricator General Kubik to aid in their endeavor, the Astartes forces would be further bolstered with 5 regiments of the Legionis Scutari and 7 cohorts of the Legion Cybernetica. With their combined might, the Astartes and Mechanicus forces would assault the attack moon. As the Last Wall faced the thousands of Greenskins, their odds would look to be matched. Yet with the timely arrival of the Imperial Fist successor chapter, the Iron Knights, the tide would turn in the Astartes' favor. Disabling the attack moon's teleportation portal, the Orks would be cut off from their reinforcements. Retreating from the attack moon, the chapter master of the Iron Knights, Malfans, would sacrifice himself to enable the retreat of his chapter and brother Astartes. Though successful in disabling the attack moon, the combined Astartes chapters would be met with derision for their refusal to comply with the outlines of the Codex Astartes and its compliance to never exceed the fighting capabilities of a singular chapter. Meanwhile, a crusade fleet of the Black Templars under the command of Marshal Magnerick would create an unlikely alliance with the Iron Warriors under the command of Warsmith Calcator in their mutual conflict against the Orks. With such desperate alliances flying in the face of the Imperial Creed, the High Lords of Terra would seek to banish the Astartes from Holy Terra. Yet Chapter Master Courland would form a political coup with the aid of the Senatorum Imperialis and succeed in assuming command as the newly appointed Lord Commander of the Imperium. Courland would see to the desisting of the Mechanicus' experiments of the attack moon's teleporting technology, realizing their intent to remove Mars from the Sol system to distance their reliance on the Imperium and Holy Terra. With combat between the Fist's Exemplar chapter and Skitarii of Mars erupting, Fabricator General Kubik would prevent further bloodshed between the two factions and their eventual massacre. Ordering his forces to stand down, Kubik would reveal that the Mechanicus' efforts to use the teleporter technology had proven successful, with the teleportation of the planetoid of Phobos from one side of Mars's orbit to another. Assessing the attack moon's teleportation data, the Mechanicus would discover the location of the beast, the Ork homeworld of Ullanor. Lord Commander Kurland would declare an Imperial crusade to be fought to the world of Ullanor to slay the beast once and for all. A call to arms that the Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Ultramarines and Space Wolves would heed alongside the last war Astartes. Yet glory would also be gained for the Salamanders with the return of the prodigal son of the Emperor, Vulkan. Discovered on the world of Caldera, Vulkan had been waging a one-man offensive against the Greenskin hordes. Lord Commander Kurland with all haste would assemble his forces and venture to Caldera. Witnessing the Salamander's Genefather slaying thousands of orcs wielding his warhammer, Doomtremor, Kurland alongside Veritas would meet with the Primarch. Upon their arrival and meeting with Vulkan, the Primarch of the 18th Legion would recognize Inquisitor Veritas and be convinced to withdraw from the doomed planet to aid in the final offensive against the orbiting attack moon. Alongside Vulkan, Kurland would infiltrate the attack moon and destroy it. Yet Vulkan would be disintegrated whilst destroying the moon's gravitic generator. However, Kurland would meet the newly regenerated Primarch once more, and with Vulkan's pledge to save Calderis achieved, Primarch Vulkan would venture with the last war Astartes to their final conflict of Ullanor. With Vulkan at the forefront of battle, the Imperial crusade to destroy the beast was Assault Ullanor Prime. Converted into a so-called attack planet alike to their moons, the Orcs would defend their homeworld with ferocity. With the initial assault costing the Astra Militarum casualties of up to 50% and a third of the combined Astartes forces perishing, Kurland would command the crusade to target the Orc supply depots in an attempt to draw out the beast. The Greenskins would as a result deploy a mega gargant, a temple devoted to their piggish gods, the size of which the Imperium had never before seen, raining death unto the Imperial forces. Vulkan would lead the remainder of the 3,000 Astartes to conduct an airborne assault on the mega gargant. Successfully boarding the mega gargant, they would face the 10-meter tall, heavily armored ruler of the Orcs, the Beast. The chapter masters of the Crimson Fists, Quesadra, and the Ultramarines, Odaenephus, would be first into the fray, yet be butchered by the Beast. Vulkan would face the monstrous creature, with Kurland commanding his forces to withdraw. Taunting Vulkan in perfect High Gothic speech, the Beast would gloat that it shall bring humanity to its knees. Yet Vulkan would end the creature's life by tackling its enormous body into the Gargant's power generator. Infusing with the Orc energy of Waagh, Vulkan would harness his own innate essence and strike it through his warhammer, Doomtremor. Destroying the beast utterly with the harnessed energy, the force would detonate the Mega Gargant and obliterate the Primarch of the Salamanders. And though victory seemed to have been achieved at much cost, the beast would endure. In the wake of the destruction of the beast and the fractured Greenskins, the Imperial Crusade would return to Holy Terra. Yet on every frequency of Imperial communications, Orc chants could be heard, all broadcasting a single message: I am slaughter. Kurland would surmise that somehow the beast still lived, or something else had taken its place as ruler of the Waagh of the beast. Founding a new order comprised of elite Astartes kill teams, the Deathwatch, these small bands of battle-hardened space marines would face the most dangerous of Xenos threats and cripple their most strategically vital assets. Incorporating Astartes of multiple chapters, the kill teams would serve as deadly squads of incredible versatility to face the worst Xenos threats known to man. Capturing several Orc Psychers with the aid of the Sisters of Silence, Kurland would oversee the creation of a force to combat the Orc Waagh energies. Unleashing their reverse Waagh energy as they invaded Ullanor once more, Kurland would command his forces to root out the beast and end it once and for all. Reaching the Throne World's central complex, the Imperial Strike Force would discover 6 thrones, banners, and statues. Seated on one of the thrones sat a massive Orc, clad in mega armor, another beast. Facing the creature in combat, Kurland and his forces would distract the beast as the Sisters of Silence conducted their reverse Waagh ritual. Successfully harnessing the energy, it would spread throughout Ullanor. Disabling the beast's honor guard, Kurland and his assassination team would slay the creature. Yet with another beast defeated, a larger one would enter the throne room, a perfect match of the beast that had faced Primarch Vulkan. Revealing that it was one of 6 beasts they referred to as the Prime Orks, the creature would kill Lord Commander Kurland by crushing him under his massive boot. With the last son of Dawn slain by the enemy, the High Lords of Terra would dither with their plans to combat the remaining beasts of the Greenskins. As the Imperium bled throughout the galaxy, the Chapter Master of the Fist Exemplar, Maximus Fane, would assume command of the Great Crusade to slay the beasts. Allying himself with Fabricator General Kubik and Grand Master of Assassins Draken Valgarich, Fane would plan the third and final invasion of Ullanor. Reconstituting the currently extinct Imperial Fist chapter using Astartes from every one of its successor chapters, the Imperial Fists would once again burgeon to 1,000 Space Marines strong. Installed as the new Chapter Master of the Imperial Fists, Fane would utilize the technologies gleaned by the Mechanicus to redirect asteroids to collide into the capital city of Ullanor, Gorkogrod. Dubbing one modified asteroid as 44 Fusa, said asteroid would be used as a landing platform for the Astartes to breach the Ork defenses. Fane's unconventional tactics would prove effective, as his Astartes, with the aid from the Sisters of Silence and Mechanicus, remnant Last Wall chapters under the command of High Marshal Bohemond and Watch Commander Asger Warfist, would combat the Orks. Supported in orbit with the Imperial Fist flagship, the Phalanx, Gorkogrod would be decimated with the initial asteroid assault. Despite severe losses in orbit, the ground forces would push towards the Ork Palace under the command of Fane. Facing one final towering Ork, dubbed the Beast of Beasts, within the throne room, the Sisters of Silence would once again conduct their ritual and weaken the Orks. So potent was their power, the Orks would perish, with even the Beast of Beasts' head exploding during its battle against Maximus Fane. Finally defeated, the Waagh of the Beast would collapse. Maximus Fane would be installed as the new Lord Commander of the Imperium, whilst Fabricator Kubik would secretly teleport Ullanor through space and moniker it under a new title, Armageddon. Further successor chapters of every founding legion would be created to prepare for the next great test of the Imperium, with the Imperial Fists now unshackled from garrisoning Holy Terra to better root out and destroy the enemies of humanity. For though the beasts were now slain, more monsters would rise in the coming millennia, and humanity would resolve to be ready the next time one should rear its ugly head.
Fire sputters. The shame of our deaths and our heresies is done. They are behind us, like wretched phantoms. This is a new age, a strong age, an age of Imperium. Despite our losses, despite the fallen suns, despite the eternal silence of the Emperor, watching over us in spirit instead of in person, we will endure. There will be no more war on such a perilous scale. There will be an end to wanton destruction. Yes, foes will come and enemies will arise. Our security will be threatened, but we will be ready. Our mighty fists raised. There will be no great war to challenge us now. We will not be brought to the brink like that again.
This has been a tale of the Greenskin Hordes, read by the Remembrancer. The War of the Beast reminds us that even the lowliest of our enemies, if left unchecked, can become a threat to his Imperium. For any Xenos given enough time to fester in the darkness beyond the light of terror shall resolve to crush humanity. Yet their spite and barbarism shall not destroy us, for we are blessed by his will, and no beast of any size shall change that.